On the days when Bobby is working and I am working, I will get him to school, take care of anything I need to take care of in the morning, come into work about 1:30, and then I will go pick him up at 3:30 from school and bring him to my mom's house.
Something you'll notice when you work with Jennifer Horbelt, it feels like she has infinite energy. Every afternoon, she flies through the newsroom like a hurricane, telling jokes and referencing the news of the day or classic 80s action movies.
I'll be back. Game over, man. I'll come back to work, do the evening newscasts, and then on my dinner break between 7 and 8, I go and get him. I get him home, get him fed, get him a shower or a bath, get him dessert if he's eaten all his dinner, and then toward bed. He's got to get in his pajamas and all that. Toward bed, my mom comes over and she kind of does the handoff and makes sure he's really getting to bed and that he's watched until I get home at 11.
I've never seen Jen move slowly or act sluggish. Even on days when she's sprinting from work to her son Logan's school to home and back to work again, Jen always hits the ground running.
Thankfully, I have a job that lets me leave, so I can go do that. If my mom, for some reason, can't watch him, if she's not feeling well, or she, is out of town, I can bring him here if I need to.
Some nights, you can hear the sound of Mario Kart filtering through the newsroom as Logan plays his Nintendo Switch while Jen is editing scripts and coordinating with reporters. Jen's husband is a firefighter, so he'll work 24 hours straight, then have 48 hours off.
Maybe we've got a baseball game or something else. So it continues to be an evolving work in progress. Childcare in our house has been an evolution. It's just depending on his age, depending on what resources we have available to us, has really led the way as far as what we do. But it's a hodgepodge of things.
Obviously, that hodgepodge isn't unique to Jen.
I think I'm probably like a lot of moms where I'm just thinking about everything else I got to do, every other person that needs attention or care or whatever. I tend to forget about myself. So, for example, on dinner breaks, I'm worried about getting him a bath. I'm worried about getting him fed. I'm worried about making sure his homework is done. I'm worried about getting him in bed and toward bed so that my mom doesn't have too much on her at the end of the day, too. By the time it's time to head back to work, I haven't eaten. I probably should eat.
In 2024, the national average price of childcare was more than $13,000 over the course of the year. That varies widely across states and between communities.
And Bryce, juggling work and childcare isn't the only thing putting pressure on us moms. A recent analysis found an average 7.3% increase in the cost of school supplies compared to last year. A survey from Intuit found 44% of parents plan to take on debt to cover those costs.
For our Season 2 finale of the Crossroads Suncast, how rising costs put more pressure on families and how moms are stepping in to fill the gap across generations. Plus, the impact of state and federal plans to support families. I'm Bryce Patterson.
And I'm Jennifer Horbelt.
Some words ring true if you know Crystal Fox from Mayfield. She founded the Mayfield Enrichment Center. As a very good friend of mine, she said, it's fine if your kids make it, but if their friends don't make it, what have you done in your life?
That's Paducah Cooperative Ministry Executive Director, Lacey Bowling. She talked to us about how her organization supports families in West Kentucky in a range of ways, including a food pantry, a shelter for unhoused people, and transitional housing programs. She's also a mom.
It's a very, very fine tightrope that we all have to walk, especially with so many schedules. The kids were always in a sport, or my daughter especially would be in 2 to 3 sports. And so trying to figure those things out, or how do we get to Bible school? How do we get to, back then it was gymnastics or dance class, or how do we get back home? And then how do we do dinner, and who's doing what?
At PCM, Bowling has daily insight into the struggles of West Kentucky's most vulnerable people. Her organization serves more than 800 families every month.
We're seeing folks who are spending 80% of their income on a place to live. That's not even talking about utilities, electric, water, and then food. How do you spend for food? Okay, then let's talk about, my daughter has a trip to Washington, D.C. coming up with her class. How do we pay for that when we're spending 80% of our income on a place to live.
And of course, kids grow, so they need
They do.
they need new clothes every year.
They
They need
do
new
grow.
shoes on
Right.
top of wearing
Right.
things out.
Right. And so how do we talk to families about saving money when 80% of our income is going to housing?
Bowling says those struggles reshape the way you think moment to moment.
There's a saying that goes, poverty eradicates the future. It takes everything at arm's length away. It takes everything in our future away. We're not thinking about long-term, college. We're not thinking about a doctor appointment and that's in 2 months or a checkup appointment. Everything is today, right now. And so the moms, the parents that we talk to, it's just that sense of just being overwhelmed, just kind of like anxiety, just like tension.
The rising cost of living can become a never-ending cycle for struggling families.
Because many landlords will put utilities and rent together. And then it just builds. We see people who are evicted and have $8,000 bills racked up. Wow. How will you ever dig out? Your eviction is going to stand for 10 years. And that bill has to be paid off before you will ever get into anything else.
It's an issue facing local families, but the stats paint an expensive picture for the entire country. And for people in poverty, the rising cost of living can make paying for childcare impossible.
The impact isn't limited to the lowest income brackets. In McCracken County, the median yearly price for toddler care at a center was $6,630 in 2018. In 2023, it was a little more than $7,800. The U.S. Department of Labor estimates child care cost at 10.5% of median household income there. An hour and change north, in Jackson County, Illinois, there's a similar change in cost over time, from about $7,500 a year to nearly $8,900. That's more than 13% of household income.
Those are largely rural communities, with Paducah and Carbondale as the respective county seats. To the south, Nashville, Davidson County, Tennessee, saw similar increases in that time period. Chicago, a jump from $12,480 in 2018 to $14,690. That's more than 16% of families' median income. In Los Angeles County, it's more than 17%. For a lot of families, especially those living below the poverty line, the cost of childcare can have a devastating impact. For single parents, it's an especially tough balance.
I have 14-year-old twins. Yes. So they're at that age.
Wow.
You
You
have
have twins and they're teenagers.
Yes.
God bless you.
Yes. I've heard that since the day
That's Kristen Bickerstaff.
I'm actually a career coach, and that is actually such a blessing to me because I myself have utilized PCM in the past. So it feels really good to be able to help people that are going through things that, maybe need some assistance.
Bickerstaff works at the Goodwill Opportunity Center in Paducah. She understands the struggle. That's because she's seen it and she's lived it.
Like Lacey said, like once you're late on a bill and you're alone, like a single mom, it's too late. And if you're raised by a family that doesn't know about these places, because my mom, she didn't know about these kind of things. She didn't know what food assistance was, anything. So I got out in the world and had no clue, and I struggled. And then it was like, oh, you're out on the street. So yeah, I spent a few years out on the street, and thank goodness for Fresh Start. I myself had a power bill and some other bill, maybe my car insurance, that it took years, and it was only like $500, like $250 a piece. But it took me years to pay those off, so I was eligible to get it again.
Bickerstaff was able to stay at home with her kids for the first 3 years or so after they were born.
So I did look into childcare a few times, and it was like, oh, never mind. That's not even going to be possible.
Jen says anxiety about childcare is a constant part of her journey as a parent.
Probably the number one thing I was nervous about when I was pregnant was, what are we going to do for childcare? And my mother was living here at the time. We had a grandparent that was nearby. She later moved away and was gone for about 5 years.
For Bickerstaff, family support is especially important.
Me and my mother, she helps. We both kind of tag team the hours because they also have different hours. So one gets picked up at 8:45, one gets picked up at 8, and that. So, and then of course there's the mall, homecoming, all that stuff, dress shopping, boys, everything.
Nationwide, the role of grandparents has shifted in the last several decades. And Jen, you're living this.
Yeah, my family really depends on my mom in at least a part-time role as caregiver for my son. And a Harris poll found 42% of working parents rely on grandmothers for childcare. 2/3 of those say there are times they could have lost their jobs without that help. In April, The Atlantic reported on a range of factors driving this change in the grandparents' role: increased life expectancy, increased numbers of single parents and working mothers, and the rising cost of childcare. Grandmothers, in particular, carry a lot of the weight. The Department of Labor finds that older women are vital to caregiving infrastructure in the United States, disproportionately taking on both paid and unpaid caregiving roles.
It's a lot of work and can represent a loss of the freedom gained by retiring. Jen's family was very aware of the potential impact on her mother.
For somebody that's already raised 3 kids, it's in their late 60s or 70s, it's hard for me to chase around a 2 or 3-year-old. And so we didn't want to put all of that on my mom. And we kind of split the difference. She watched him some, but we also had daycare. And then we had preschool, which sort of became daycare. And we had somebody at the preschool who became his sitter, too, after preschool hours, which was big.
I don't want to paint too dire of a picture here. A lot of grandparents are really excited to be involved in their grandchildren's lives.
My mom's one of them. It's been really special for her and Logan to get that time together. And research shows providing childcare support is a key way to combat the isolation experienced by many seniors.
I am lucky to have a spouse that, cooks, because I don't know how to do that. And I don't know how to do those stuff. I'm like, we eating or what? Is there food anywhere? Does anybody have that?
Jen, like PCM's Lacey Bowling, also stresses the importance of her husband's role in parenting.
It helps so much when you have a good partner who can help you figure it out. I can't imagine what it would be like by myself. I get just a tiny little taste of that on the days that Bobby is gone for 24 hours. And I'm really not by myself because I have my mom.
Despite cultural shifts away from more traditional gender roles, women still take on more domestic work than men in heterosexual relationships. Specifically, childcare and housework, which the authors of a study from April of this year call the, quote, second shift.
Women are much more likely to say they feel a lot of pressure to take care of their responsibilities at home. That can cut into women's ability to prioritize their careers. The same study, titled Taking on the Invisible Third Shift, highlights a disproportionate amount of cognitive work done by women. Things like planning and scheduling childcare and household tasks. The stress can be really draining and lead to emotional exhaustion. The authors argue the pandemic exacerbated existing inequalities, with moms taking on more childcare responsibilities as schools and daycares closed.
A 2022 study found that men took on more domestic labor during lockdowns, but that the shift was generally temporary. Broadly, women's median income is still significantly lower than men's. Pew Research Center data shows women earned 85% of men's salary on average last year. That gap is narrower for younger generations. Career fields dominated by women also tend to pay less.
77% of American teachers are women, as are nearly 95% of childcare workers. Less flexible work schedules, as federal offices and more companies require in-office rather than remote work, have also disproportionately impacted women, especially moms. A United Nations report released this summer found nearly 20% of respondents from 14 countries didn't think they'd be able to have the number of children they'd like. The major drivers: financial limitations, fear for the future, and job insecurity. 13% of women also pointed to unequal division of domestic work as a factor.
At the national level, fertility rates in the U.S. have been dropping since 2007. According to the Centers for Disease Control, the U.S. birth rate dropped by 2% a year from 2014 to 2020, hitting a historic low in 2023. President Donald Trump's second administration is attempting to encourage Americans to have more children. His signature legislation, the Big Beautiful Bill, includes a, quote, Trump account, investing $1,000 when a baby is born. The money can be withdrawn once the child turns 18. That program's available to kids born after December 31st, 2024, and before January 1st, 2029.
And in April, Bryce, the president spoke positively about a $5,000 baby bonus for new mothers. During the 2024 campaign, Vice President J.D. Vance pushed for an expansion to the child tax credit, pitching $5,000 a child. Well, based on our research, that payment would cover about 63% of childcare costs for 1 year for a median family in McCracken County. The child tax credit is approved for a smaller increase. In 2026, that tax credit will be $2,200, up from $2,000.
Earlier this year, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy ordered his department to prioritize, quote, families and family-specific difficulties, such as the accessibility of transportation to families with young children, and give preference to communities with marriage and birth rates higher than the national average. The Trump administration has also considered cutting government funding from Head Start programs, which provide free care for young children. While it hasn't lost all of its federal funding, the program has been impacted by funding freezes and cuts to staffing.
If we want to make sure that our reading scores improve, how do we do it? Ensuring every Kentucky child is kindergarten ready.
Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear signed an executive order over the summer, establishing an advisory committee to implement universal pre-K in the state. He says that helps kids academically over the course of their lives. And it gives parents more space to get back into the workforce. It's been a central push for Beshear's administration, which estimates between 40 and 70,000 Kentuckians are pushed out of the workforce by the need to care for children not enrolled in school or childcare.
Illinois is currently working to expand preschool access across the state. Last summer, Governor J.B. Pritzker signed SB 1, establishing a new Department of Early Childhood for the state. It'll streamline the work of multiple agencies covering preschool for all expansion, home visiting programs, and daycare licensing. The agency is expected to be fully implemented in 2026. In Tennessee, a bill funding universal pre-K failed in committee this spring.
Expanding access to preschool is one way that states are working to address the need for childcare, though many of those programs only hold kids for 10 to 15 hours a week. Starting this November 1st, New Mexico will become the first state to offer universal access to free childcare. Annually, the policy is expected to cost nearly $600 million and save families about $12,000 per child.
In our area, there's a long way to go to support families, but there is great work being done.
I'm happy to be alive. And I'll be honest, whenever it gets to that point, it was 4 years before I even had anything. Like, I walked around the little boxes with the food, just wandering around like, yeah.
Gosh. And then after 4 years, an opportunity.
Yes.
That literally turned everything. It's like it takes one or two mistakes to get there, but all it takes is one person putting their hand out or one organization putting their hand out.
And that's
saying,
it.
"Let's help you."
Yes, that's it.
Bowling says PCM will continue helping people just like Bickerstaff. Through outreach and a planned facility expansion, their work is far from done.
But Bowling says society as a whole has a long way to go, too.
Do you think we as a society have not done a good enough job of supporting mothers?
I would say that's a fair assessment. Even though, I hear people all the time say, well, even fast food pays double the minimum wage. However, it's still not a livable wage. And I mean, it kind of seems like we're not doing exactly what we probably ought to be doing.
Video and sound for this episode by Mason Watkins. Thank you so much for your support through Season 2 of the Crossroads Suncast. We'll be back later this year. If there's a story you'd like us to cover, reach out. Shoot us an email at newstip@wpsdlocal6.com.